Welcome back to the Anti-Settle podcast. This is the space for ambitious women who know they were made for more than simply checking boxes, meeting everyone else's expectations, and building a life that looks good on the outside, but leaves them feeling exhausted, disconnected, or unfulfilled on the inside. If you've reached the point where you can no longer ignore the pull to prioritize your health, your happiness, your dreams, and yourself, you belong here. Around here, we believe that choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's the catalyst that changes everything. I'm your host, Cassie Rivard, and in each week, I'll take you behind the scenes of my own journey, the lessons I'm learning in real time, and the powerful shifts I've witnessed inside my coaching practice. I'll share the mindset tools, belief work, nervous system insights, client stories, and honest conversations that help women stop settling and start building lives they genuinely love. More than anything, my hope is that this becomes more than a podcast. I hope it becomes a community of women who inspire one another, challenge one another, hold one another accountable, and remind each other what's possible when you have a clear vision, the right support, practical tools, and the courage to trust yourself. So whether you're walking the dog, driving to work, folding laundry, or finally taking a few minutes for yourself, I'm so glad you're here. Here's to never settling. Welcome back, or welcome to the Anti-Settle podcast. My name is Cassie, and today's episode is going a bit deeper into a post I did a couple weeks ago. Admittedly, this podcast was supposed to go live just a little bit after that post went live, but I got incredibly sick and took me an incredibly long time to recover, so I am recording it now. And what this was inspired by is I used to follow this financial guru, financial person, and every month she would say 3 or 5 things that she was upset that she spent money on that month, and 3 or 5 things that she was like, yep, well worth it, so happy I spent that money on. And I always for some reason appreciated those posts, and I wanted to create one about the lessons I'm learning every month and the things that I'm working through in hopes that they inspire or help, or I don't know, if someone's nosy wants to see some tea, whatever the reason might be. I really like them. I wanted to do a similar series about it each month, and then as I was writing the post, I was like, gosh, like this is going to be a really lengthy post, and then I was like, wait a minute, why don't I just introduce it in a post and then I'll do a deep dive on the podcast. So this is that deep dive, and admittedly I did make that post about 2 weeks ago, so I have my notes here to make sure that I'm remembering everything and can say what I want to say. So I did 3 things that I was spiraling about, in my head about, that were really tough for me to move through, and then 3 things that were ahas for me in the month of July and things that I'm bringing into August. And man, July was a crazy month. Like July had such amazing lessons that I fully believe are going to change the trajectory of my life. And I don't like big verbiage like that. I don't love verbiage like that, but I fully believe that sentence and fully mean that sentence with my whole heart. The lessons I learned in July, I do fully believe will change the trajectory of my life. And I'm hoping if I can articulate them as well as I want to on this podcast, and you're anything like me, I hope that they might actually help you do the same. So I'm gonna start off with the areas that I was spiraling in that were really tough for me to work through. And then I'll get into the 3 lessons, ahas, and things that I truly feel are going to change my life. They're at least gonna change my August, but I fully believe they're going to change my life. So let's get into them. So number 1 is milestones. So it's crazy because as a mom, like don't compare your children. Every child is different, yada, yada. But it's still very difficult when you want to make sure that your child is learning and growing and doing all the things that they're supposed to do. And I kind of ebb and flow. Part of me is like, I don't care if he can stack 2 things. I can tell he's progressing, he's learning, he's doing fine. If he can't stack things by this month, he'll stack things by this month. It feels like part of me is like, I'm not really that worried about it. But the other part of me is like, excuse me, didn't you say you wanted a kid that excelled and was great at everything? And don't you want that kid that's advanced at everything? And I feel like I also have friends who over the last couple of years, like as I've become a mom, before I was a mom, like, yeah, my kids advanced at this, advanced at that, or doing this way before they should be. And so I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna be that kind of mom where my kids doing those kind of things. And I realized I don't really have a ton of control over that. I can do activities, so there's really not a ton of it's in my control. And so for whatever reason, in July, I think July, because it's summer and I was around other kids and babies and parents more than I typically am. And he's also at a stage where some babies do it really fast and some babies do it at a slower timeline. And things like walking. So he's taking his first steps. He's coming up, he's taking his little steps, especially now as I record this. Like when I wrote that post, he was standing up, taking a few steps and falling, but now he's stringing together those steps. I believe we have a week, max 2, before he is fully walking and we are totally screwed. But, which is great, I love to hear that, I love it. And I know that's normal. I know all of this, I know my very logical brain is all very normal. However, this emotional brain, let me tell you, we went to this event, this birthday party with friends, and there is a little girl who is 10 days difference in age from our son. And she was not only walking, she was running. She was running. And so I'm like, holy crap. And of course I start to get in my crap, and then I start to justify like, oh, well, she's a second child and it's a girl versus a boy. And while some of those things are true, like second children do typically advance a bit faster because they're watching the older sibling, and they say girls typically develop faster, all the things, I got into my crap about like, oh my gosh, are we doing something wrong? Is there something more we should be doing to help him walk? Knowing that when I look at all of the milestone charts and all of that, he's exactly where he needs to be, and he's progressing and he's trying and he's totally fine. And then there were things like feeding himself. So he'll feed with his hands, no problem. That kid is a little machine when it comes to feeding himself. And he'll even take a spoon. If we load the spoon, he'll take it and eat it, which is great. And then it dawned on me that my friend, I was like, hey, when did your son start to scoop his own food and eat it? And she's like, yeah, probably around 12 months. And I'm like, wait, my son's 12 months and he's not scooping his own food yet. And I gotta look at the little milestone stuff, and essentially like that one, the milestone charts are just like, hey, as long as they're independently feeding themselves with even their fingers, you're good to go. But I was like, dang, like that's his fine motor skills. I want to be able to have them. And I started getting my stuff and start saying, oh, you must be a bad mom. You're not allowing him to do it, because it is really messy for him to learn that skill. For him to learn how to scoop and eat, it's a very, very messy skill to learn. And there's a part of me that at one point, like when I was pumping and just newly pregnant and feeding him, like I started to hate feeding him, because I would try to I load the spoon and give it to him, and he would like eat the food and then make himself gag with the spoon and then chuck the spoon. So here I am, pump attached to one boob, it completely, utterly exhausted, and I'm having to go find this darn spoon. My dog had now licked it, so I have to go wash it. And this was a several occasion thing when I was feeding my child, and pumping while feeding him was the best time because he wasn't pulling at my pump. Like there wasn't really any other opportunities. So I genuinely started to hate feeding him or giving him anything that needed a spoon because of this process. And then, so that was number one reason why I'm like, oh, it makes sense why your child doesn't feed himself with a spoon, he hasn't had the reps for it. And then number two, I was like, Cassie, I beat myself up. I was in my head about this. Talking to my husband about it, he's like, yeah, good call out. We probably should get back to letting him do, because like once I was like pumping all things, I would just feed him with it, because I'm like, I need to save my sanity somehow, and this is it. And then they're like, no, we should really get back to just letting him do it and all the things. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. And I kind of was I really was in my shit about it. Like text my friend, are you sure it was 12 months? And she was like, yeah, I just talked with my husband, it was 12 months. And I'm like, dang. But then I realized my son doesn't eat anything pureed. Nothing. There's not a vegetable, he does not eat pureed foods. He doesn't eat mashed foods like potatoes, applesauce, pouches. Like he does not like anything mashed. So here I am beating myself up about something, but it's not even like the opportunities were even there for him to practice, because like he doesn't eat those foods. So of course he doesn't have that skill. So then when I got out of my shit and started realizing this, I'm like, okay, this isn't necessarily about me being a bad mom. It's like he doesn't eat these foods to begin with. And when I was in my problem solving state, I was like, okay, we keep offering these foods, he doesn't want them. What else could I do to help him build this skill? And then I'm also like, okay, it's really messy. That was part of the reason. okay, can we get better suction plates that he can't dump the whole thing on his head in the middle of his eating? Or is there anything else I can learn that he can learn to scoop with? And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, like this is less about me being a bad mom and this, that, and the other, and more about, okay, what can we do now? Like, how can we move forward? And also realizing, like, giving myself some grace that, like, hey, like, he's progressing in his own ways and own times, and sometimes, like, there's just not the opportunity for something because it's just not what your kid likes to do or eat or what have you. And it really helped release some of the pressure. But for a good, I don't know, like, for the eating one, at least a whole day. For the walking one, that one took a while. I was definitely in my stuff about it. And you know, as a mom, not to do it. But it's so hard because you don't want your kid to be behind. You don't want it to reflect bad on you. There's so much behind it. So that was quite the lesson through July. Quite the lesson. And then also at this birthday party, and these kids are like crawling in water and grass. And my kid's like, don't you dare go towards that water with me. And that grassy stuff is pokey and I don't want to be in that either. Which I can't blame him. That water felt cold to me. I didn't want it to tag. I was like, shit, I don't want to get wet. And I also don't like sitting in the grass. Thinking about exposure therapying him in grass, I'm like, God, I don't even want to sit in grass. I know he'll get cool with water and grass eventually. I'm thinking, of course, like when he's walking more, things like that. But even that, I was like, man, are we just coddling this kid? I grew up in dirt and all the things. So July was quite the month, but I think we're through a lot of that and we'll see how it keeps going. So that was number one. It is tough. Number two, uncertainty. So I have shared on this podcast before and social media that I took some massive leaps in my life in May coming into June and really in June. Like June, my son, his birthday party hit, and that was the end of several jobs. So all throughout this year so far, once I started back working in like January-ish, I was back up to around five jobs, but 5 income streams. None of them full-time, like patching together, like 3 hours here, 5 hours here, 20 hours here kind of thing, okay? And what I was realizing though is pre-baby, I can do 5 jobs in my sleep. After baby, my brain was, and especially realizing, and during this time I was now pregnant again and still breastfeeding or pumping, I did not have the bandwidth to do all of this. And I realized what I was doing was not going to get me to the life I wanted. Like the life that I envisioned and where I want to be, what I was doing was not going to get me there. And I needed to make some significant decisions. And I had hired a coach, and from March to June, she's like, Cassie, like, the fuck are you doing? Like, do you actually want this or not? And we had some really hard conversations. And finally in June, I pulled the trigger. I stepped back from teaching. I stepped back from a job of coaching. I quit. About only thing that I had left was one job, one 20-hour-a-week job, and my own business. That was it. Which is huge when you think about like income and having a child, bringing in an au pair. Like there are so many things that are dependent on income and money and things like that, that doing that was a massive risk. And then in July, like it felt at first like, cool, I'm doing the things, I'm making the hard decisions, like look at me go. And then in July, it starts to set in. Like I don't have an income. Like I have a 20-hour-a-week income, but like that's not paying the bills. And it starts to set in with me that, okay, this is taking a little bit longer than I anticipated. I mean, I knew it was gonna take longer. I don't wanna say more than I anticipated, but the reality of this is my bank account says, this is where I'm at, and living in the uncertainty and constantly questioning. I was living in fear and uncertainty and constantly asking my coach, like, at what point do I say I just get more jobs? Knowing that that was my pattern, knowing that I've done this, I've stepped away from positions before, so I was in my own business, but the minute I get to this spot specifically, I freak out and I go get more jobs. And then the more jobs crowd out the time to focus on my own business falls to the wayside. I say it's because of money, and like this pattern has repeated for 4 years, minimum 4 years. And this was my stance, like, no, like I refuse to go back to that pattern. I'm just not going to do it. But in making that decision, I'm also saying, hey, like cash flow is not looking very cash-like. And, we have leverage and debt and things like that. We can lever it. We have, ways we can leverage debt, but I didn't necessarily want to do that because I've done that too much too. Like I was in this space of like, I don't want debt. I don't want 5 jobs. And I like the one position I have. I'm cool. I like it's flexible. It fits my lifestyle. And but I was like living in this uncertainty. Like I was like in full blown tears on my coaching call with my coach, because I'm like holding, and how she explains it, she's like, you're holding the tension between where you are and where you want to be. And she's like, this is the hardest and most uncomfortable place to be. Like, you are putting in the efforts, but you're not seeing the fruits. Like, you're planting the seeds, but there's no trees or fruits yet, no flowers yet. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly where I am right now. And whoa, man, it's still uncomfortable. Like, I'm not saying I'm even through that, but my brain was just spiraling, and it was using the verbiage of like, well, you have to be responsible and you can't be irresponsible. Like, you have bills and you have this and you have that. And she really was questioning, like, okay, how much of this is actually true? Like, what happens if X, Y, and Z? And really questioning me on this uncertainty. And, you know, the uncertainty is real. Like, no one's gonna ignore the fact that there's uncertainty there. But being in the life of an entrepreneur, like, you're like, your ability to be successful as an entrepreneur is your ability to hold uncertainty. Like, that's that's the bottom line. And so working through that uncertainty and getting to a place of acceptance, getting to a place of like, okay, I may still at some point have to pick up more hours, more somethings, whatever, but it's not coming from this desperate energy. It's not coming from this like fear-based, like, I understand my position, where I am, and like what I want in life, and I'm like, I want this, and I'm not redoing that pattern of more jobs, more hours, more things. And even right now, I'm like, maybe I should start looking at that option. My friend's like, no, like, how can you do this in your own business? Like, what can you do? What levers can you pull? What other things could you be doing right now? And that's even a very different shift. And so again, I'm still not out of these woods either, but I'm not bawling, I'm not spiraling, I'm not in a really low headspace over this uncertainty. I see it as like, I'm building this capacity to hold this uncertainty, to move through this discomfort, knowing that this very point is my pattern, and this is my opportunity to break it. And I'm well resourced. That's why I have a coach. I have an incredibly supportive husband. You know, we're figuring this stuff out. Like, we're both on the same page here, and there does feel like there is a bit of a timeline because I have a baby. But at the end of the day, it's a different energy going about it. And I think to be in this place versus where I was in that first coaching call in July is light and day. This feels more resourced. This feels more expansive. This feels like I'm living in what's possible, and I'm choosing to believe. I am spreading the seeds and watering them, and at one point there will be trees, fruits, and flowers. Do I know when that is? No. Do I have hope for when that is? Absolutely. Am I doing everything that I can? Am I trying to choose the best soil? And am I trying to make sure I'm looking up the best methods? And yes, I'm doing all those things. And I say all this is like, I'm not a gardener, so take that for what you will. But it's been my practice in the month of July into August to sit in possibility and to keep choosing possibility, building my capacity and putting in the reps, and sitting in that for as uncomfortable as it is, just sitting in that and trusting, which is a very new skill for me, and it's been very, very challenging to say the least. So I'm gonna keep moving on because I realize I'm at like 17 minutes here and I'm still only with like 2 of the 6. So I'm gonna keep moving here. So next one is not following my gut. So I feel like my August update will also have a tinge of this in there. But in July, so when I start, again, I realized I had this timeline, I had this pattern. There was a part of me that wanted all this to happen quickly or as fast as possible. And in my mind, like, I pay for coaches because I know they collapse time. I know by working with a coach, they're gonna call me out my shit. I'm hoping that they have a blueprint or something I can follow, that I can say, if I do your thing, I should get X, Y, and Z fairly predictably because I'm paying you, because I believe you have a blueprint or a method that if I do those things, I get the results. Like, if I do them honestly and with integrity and to the best of my ability, there's most likely this result at the end. And I fully believe, like, I think coaching is that, but I think where I started to miss, hey, my gut is saying my gut is saying one thing, this blueprint person or guide is saying do another, and I was kind of like, okay, is this just me being uncomfortable because this is a new and recently uncomfortable task to do? Or is this against something that I value, or is this against my values? And I started off July trying to follow this blueprint or checklist of someone online, and I was having so much resistance. And I think some people are much better at moving through resistance than I feel like I am at times. But for me, if I'm not bought in, if I don't believe something, if I think something is not within my value system, I have a very hard time overcoming it. To some degree, I'm a manifesting generator in human design. For those who know that, cool, like, you know what that means. If you don't, that's fine. But essentially, like, from what I know of human design, I am very responsive to my environment. And when I do not, like, when I have this level of resistance, I can get past it. Like, I can get past resistance, but it's like pulling teeth. And I know that feeling is very different than the flow and enjoyment. And like, I am an incredibly productive human when I'm in flow. When I'm behind something and I believe something, things flow quickly and easily. Easily, but they flow, and I can do them, and I know there's a reason behind them, and there might be resistance, but I can work through that resistance, and I move with a quick clip. Like, if I believe something, I move. Like, I will take the action and do the things. And so when I feel this resistance, I know myself enough to say, hey, this ain't it, Cassie. But I was outsourcing this power, and I was outsourcing this belief, because, like, okay, if you just do what they say, like, you know, you're gonna collapse this timeline. And in doing that, I wasted so much time because I was just spiraling and taking forever to do tasks. And I really had to ask myself and my coach, like, is what's being asked of me, is this something that is truly against my value and that's why I'm having resistance? Or is it new and uncomfortable and I do actually need to work through it? And I would say things like, I absolutely hate doing this task. I fucking hate it. And my coach is like, Cassie, even as a dietitian or a fitness coach, if someone's like, I fucking hate this thing, you're gonna help them find an alternative. Like, you know damn good and well that sure, they can follow the thing they hate for some amount of time, but eventually there's gonna be a time where it doesn't work. They don't follow it, they fall off, and that serves no one. So why don't we find stuff that you actually feel good about doing and that feels stretchy for you and feels outside your comfort zone, but you're not so insanely resistant to it? Because yes, this method may work for some people, but it may not be what's working for you. It may not be where you're at right now. And there is a difference between like this level of resistance and feeling like it's against your values and just being uncomfortable because something's new and difficult. So I annoyed how much time I spent in July trying to do this other thing, but I also couldn't get to where I am now with a flow that I feel good about and that I feel confident in, that I feel like, okay, like I'm doing the seeds, I'm doing the things, like this feels really good. I couldn't get to this place without taking the action, feeling that resistance, moving through and getting to here. So I don't regret any of those decisions. I just hate how long it took. And I hate how much my brain loves to go into like, well, I trust them because they have X, Y, and Z. And a lot of times it's marketing. That's one thing, is it's marketing. There are so many people who I'm realizing over the last several months are exiting the space for their own reasons, which I don't judge exiting the space. I fully believe everyone's learning things as they're going, and I don't judge or shame anyone for these conversations I'm about to say, but there is a level of people who are saying, do this, follow my plan or blueprint, and you won't have burnout, and you will make X, Y, and Z money, and do all these things, only for them now, a year or two, however long later, exiting the space, coming back in and saying, yeah, I was really burnt out, and blah, 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 and it's like, your whole thing was on not getting burnt out. And again, I don't shame them because everyone has their own things and seasons of life and all that, but it made me realize like everyone's blueprints, there's a lot of marketing that goes out there. I want to believe good intentions of people, but not everyone has those good intentions. And then also, just because something doesn't lead to burnout for one person doesn't mean it's not going to lead to burnout for me, or it's going to feel good to me, or what have you. And that me just handing over my power in the hopes of whatever they're trying to sell is, especially when I can feel that resistance. Like my stomach, my chest is contracted. I can feel in my body it's not right. It's taking me forever to take action. I know there is a difference for me. And if I'm ignoring that feeling, it's not in my best interest. And so that was a lesson I learned in July, and then August had another layer of it. Thankfully, the August layer was actually like a win. Like, oh shit, like look at me, like, all right. So I'll probably talk about that more in the August one. Okay, all right, so those are the 3 things that kept me spiraling that I really had a tough time through in July, that were really things I had to work through, get support on. I've had my coach for 5 months now, and we have our last session in September, and I'm really sad about that because I feel like she's pushed me and really helped me through a lot of that. Okay, so on to the things that I learned. Clearly I learned a lot in July too, in those scenarios too, but these are the things where I want to say like they feel like wins, or things that I'm like, wow, like these are huge ahas coming out of July into August, and again, I fully believe will change the trajectory of my life. And again, I do not say that lightly. I fully believe in that sentence, and hopefully by the time I explain this, you'll understand why I'm saying this. There's one of them that I don't know how I'm gonna articulate, and I hope I do it justice because it really was a massive aha for me. But I can see how, if not articulated properly, it comes across as just being an asshole. So let's hope we get there. And I will hopefully hear feedback from y'all listening if I got there or if it was just toned up. So, number 1, hobbies. So younger me, pre-baby me, I worked a ton. I had 5 jobs at any given time, and I worked so I wanted to travel, and I was very, like, my life revolved around work. Like, I got significance and I felt special and important if I was on vacation answering a call or having a meeting or taking a call or doing work, which is mind-boggling. Like, nobody wants, like, that doesn't make you, like, it made me feel so important and so significant if I was doing those things. And now I'm like, fuck no, I don't want to be doing any of those things when I'm on vacation. But there's a lot of my mentality that I realized in that hobbies weren't productive. Hobbies weren't going to get me paid. They were cool. I know I should have one, but like I didn't put a lot of effort into having one. And I don't know, somewhere in July, I realized, and through some conversations with some friends and my nanny and just in general, it like dawned on me that hobbies, yeah, they're great for self-care and yeah, yada yada. But I also look at someone like my husband, who has 1,000,010 hobbies that are incredibly diverse. Like, the man's into like football, he's into anime, he's into all sorts of kinds of music. He has so many diverse hobbies, so that when he goes into any sort of room, he can connect very quickly. He has a lot of really good friends, who are amazing people. And and you can kind of he has friend groups from like every season of life, I feel like, because he just makes friends. And I will say, in this season of life, I have incredible friends as well, do not get me wrong. And I do yearn for having some new good, solid friendships. Or I don't want to say new, but additional. Like, I have really great, solid friendships that I love now, but I am yearning for more connection in this season of life. And what I realized though is I feel like it's harder. I have a harder time opening up to people, to people at like a personal level. At professional level, I'll talk all day long, but personal level, I'm always like, what do I say? And it's much more difficult for me. And I realize how much my husband having hobbies makes it so much easier to talk to random ass people. Like, I have I like healthy eating kind of, but I'm not really doing it right now, so I don't really love talking about it. Some days I like fitness, some days I don't. I like walking. I don't like cooking. I like to travel. But essentially what I'm trying to say here is the lack of hobbies that I haven't really explored or found. I have seen there's only so much to talk about with people. Like, only people, and I love deep conversation. Like, I want to get in and deep. I want to hear someone's inspirations, their dreams, their this, that, and the other. But like, there has to be a level of conversation before you get there. And I'm like, let's just dive in. Let's just talk about your dreams right now, day 1, minute 1. And that's not how life works. And this is also, again, why I know I would not have survived the Tinder world of dating. So really happy I met my husband before that world. Anyways, I digress. So essentially, what my aha in August was, having hobbies and interest has utility outside of just like self-care and that, but it's a gateway for connection. It's a gateway that if I can have, it's good to have hobbies. We all know that. But it's also another way to connect, other ways to be able to connect with others in different ways. And being someone who's a first-time mom, has worked from home for 5 or 6 years now, it's difficult to make new friends. It's difficult to expand that friend group, and hobbies are the way to do it. Not the way, the only way, but like I'm like, okay, like I can see utility. So like learning in my head, like, oh, hobbies have utility. What a concept. So the fun part is now, like, what hobbies do I get into? Because that's also, I'm like, gosh, well, I feel like I live in the wrong state for all the hobbies I want to get into. Like, I want to rock climb. I love hiking. I want to, like, go up mountains. I'm like, oh shit, I live in Michigan. But gotta figure out some hobby. And like arts and crafts, not my thing. Gardening, not my thing. I gotta find some. I don't know what it's gonna be, but we're gonna find it. But essentially that was not, that's, again, that one's gonna like be cool and all, but like that might not be what changes my life forever, but these next two are the big ones. So, number 2, how much my inner voice was distorting my reality. And this is the one I really hope I explain this and articulate it well in a way that it lands and resonates and doesn't come across as tone deaf. And to be completely honest, I keep thinking about how do I articulate this, and I don't know that I've gotten where I want to be on this. And I know that my coach tried having the same conversation with me in probably early July, maybe even like late May, and it did not land. And I'm very fearful of it landing with you, how it landed with me. But I still think I need to share it because I have gotten to this place, and if that can potentially shorten the gap for you to get from that point A to point B, I think it's worth sharing. So I'm gonna do my best, and please respond. Let me know how this lands. Good, bad, or ugly, I can take it. But for me, I've heard for years, I understand the importance of gratitude. I understand how important it is to live in gratitude and all those things. And my coach had said to me, if you don't live in gratitude, you're repelling the things that you actually want. By saying, I can't be happy in my current state of life, then I can't be happy until I get the house, until I get the job, until I get the income, until I get blah, blah, blah. If I'm saying I can't be happy until those things, I'm essentially repelling what I do want. I'm living in scarcity, and I'm repelling the things that, like the optimism and the abundance and the life that I want, I'm repelling it by living in this scarcity mindset, by thinking I need all these things for my life to feel better and for me to be happy and proud. I was doing it in the reverse order. And so what I took from that is I need to be grateful. And I was like, I am grateful. Like, I am grateful. But I would say those words, and I think there's a part of me that was grateful. Like, I am grateful for my husband. I'm grateful for my beautiful son. I'm grateful for the house we live in. I'm grateful for the life we've created. Like, there was a part of me that I was grateful. But I'd be lying if that wasn't like a full body I'm grateful. And this is where I think there's a difference. So I've struggled with this concept of gratitude for a while, because I remember one of my coaches, she talks about getting into a state where you at any point in time can get into a state of gratitude. And that was always a more difficult one for me. But one belief, if I bring into one thing, I can always get into a whole body state of gratitude. And that is my father. So if I get into, I am so grateful that I got 17 whole years with my dad. I got 17 years of his lessons and his super unconditional love, and 17 years where he chose me, where I realize now he did not have to. That to me, like, there is immense, like, that the amount of gratitude I feel for that can bring me to tears if I'm like in that state, because there is such power. And that to me is full body, like, I feel this gratitude in my entire body. my chest opens up. I can, like, there's love, like I can feel that. And I knew that when I was saying I was grateful for my life and my husband and my son and my job and all the things, it was not the same level. And to a degree, I don't expect it to be like comparing to my dead dad, but I could tell part of me was just giving lip service and saying like, I'm grateful, okay, things come to me. It doesn't work like that. But I didn't know, I couldn't figure out how to get to the other side. I couldn't figure out what am I missing between that. And part of it was I didn't believe, because my coach had asked me, if nothing were to change, if right now you lost most of you just had X, Y, and Z, like you just had your husband, just had your son, lost everything else, could you still be grateful? And the part of me that wants to like be a good human was like, yeah, of course. But no, I have a really, at that moment, I could not be grateful if I didn't have this, like a house that we lived in and the life that we have. Like, I still felt that I would not be, I could not answer yes to that with a full chest without knowing I was lying to some degree. But I didn't know, I was like, I don't know, how do I get there? And my coach and I went in other directions, and somewhere in July, I had this epiphany. Realistically, what I was doing is I was using ChatGPT to like refine something that I had said, and there was like 2 or 3 lines that it had said that made the light bulb in my brain go off, even though what it said and what went off my brain were very unrelated. Like, I don't really know how I got from this point A to point B in this, but like I did. And what I realized was how much my brain was distorting reality. How much my brain, because I started asking myself, okay, Cassie, what is it that you feel like you can't be happy without? And I'm like, I really want a modern, like, beautiful house. Like, I really want this, like, I want a very, like, incredibly modern house. And I was like, what about that modern house matters to you? I'm like, well, I feel like elevated, and I feel excited, and it gives me like this expansive feeling in my body. And then I was like, okay, well, what about that? And I started to really keep asking, well, what about that? What about that? And what about that? And I realized this house I'm in right now could be all of those things. The only thing that's making it not all those things is me. Like, we could build on. We just got a bathroom renovated, and it's phenomenal. Like, I was holding this modern house as the one thing that was going to make me happy or make me feel proud or what have you, when really, like, I have that. We have a massive yard. We have rooms for our child, or we have an au pair coming, room for that. We have a beautiful bath. Like, we have the things. Like, yes, it's not ultra modern, and yes, I can still aspire. I still want that modern house, don't get me wrong. But does that need to mean that I can't be happy and proud of what we have in this moment right now? The part 2 of that was my husband. I was like, yeah, I'm grateful for my husband. He's really great. But like, part of me again was giving lip service, which is insane, because like, he really, like, I read so many things on social media and so many conversations, and I don't relate with them, because like I don't have to tell my husband what size diapers my kid's in. I don't have to beg him to take care of our son. I don't have to beg him so I can get 2 hours myself. Like, there just isn't a beg. There's, hey, I'm doing this. Hey, we need to do that. Cool, done. Like, or he's even asking, hey, I noticed you haven't went out in a while. Like, why don't you take a couple hours? Well, like, he is amazing. He's amazing towards me. Like, every facet, he is incredible. But I was running this story in my head that, well, a couple of different stories. One of the stories was, men suck. Men don't know kids like this. You know, women assume the role of parent and blah blah blah. And while like that is true for some families, and that like those are real things other women deal with, that's not what I deal with. That's not my reality. My reality is I have a husband who cooks full meals, who is fully connected to our son, understands what sizes he's in, and I don't have to remind him of those things. Granted, my husband has some severe ADHD, so like there's definitely reminders in there, but it's not because he doesn't take interest in our son. He is just as invested in our son as I am. I am not the default parent. We are very, very split in our default parenting, especially since I'm no longer like pumping, breastfeeding, those kinds of things. Like what the reality I was holding on to this reality that other women were sharing. I realize now, because I wanted to connect with them. I'm like, well, if I have this story and I can find things and manipulate those things to match this narrative, I can connect with other women. However, I can't, on that line, I can't connect because that's not my reality. And when I started to actually say, like, what is my actual reality? My actual reality is I have an incredible husband, and I'm so damn proud of that and so damn happy about that. And how dare I try to twist and turn that so I can use that to connect? There are a million other things, like hobbies, that I can learn to connect on. I don't have to distort my reality to be able to do that. And I think the same thing with that house. I think that in my mind, connection is struggle. That was the other piece of this. Like, if I struggle, I can connect, because people love the underdog story, and I love the underdog story. And my brain was like, how can I distort every single thing in a way that it makes me struggle, or say I had a hard life, or hard this, or hard that, when yes, I have had hard moments, but in no way, shape, or form have I really had a hard life. I've had hard instances, moments, events, but overall, I'm a pretty damn lucky person. My brain loves to say, like, wait for the next shoe to drop, like, you're not lucky. But, and I don't want to say it's all luck, like, I've worked damn hard for where I am in my life and what I've done, but there is a level of, like, I actually do have some luck on my side in my life. And what I'm trying to say here, and I hope I am articulating, is pulling back the stories that were, like, really distorting my reality and that I was telling myself that were just not true. Starting to peel those off. It almost feels like, when you're in health class in high school, or I think it's middle school now, where they put, like, drunken goggles on you and you are like, whoa, things look this way, and take them off and you're like, oh, okay, cool, I'm back to normal. Or, like, if you have the glasses that will put, like, different colors in front of your eyes, I feel like in July, I was taking all of those off and starting to see what I had in my life for the reality that it is. And the other last part of this, I think is incredibly important to mention too, was my son. So going into motherhood, said, like, I don't want to work 40, 50 hours a week, 40 plus hours a week. I really want to be with my son and all the things. But then before we got support this summer, I was really struggling being home that much with my son. Like, it was something that I wasn't enjoying as much. I was in a really, really heavy, really hard headspace that could almost bring me to tears thinking about. And there was a point where I was like, definitely like, no, husband, I don't want you to go to golf, because that means I'm with this kid for 4 more hours by myself. And I realized much of that area I was in was not realizing I was in first trimester pregnancy, and B, then trying to pump on top of that. And the roller coaster and exhaustion, and pregnancy this time around is much, much more difficult because you don't have the downtime to get out the first one. But that area was really rough, and I started to be not wanting to be home with my son. And that sucks as mom to say that, because I wanted to be the one, like, I wanted to be one that did, and I felt a shift. And I remember saying something to my husband around, like, when our au pair comes, and she's here for 45 hours a week, or she's on duty for 45 hours a week, I don't know if I want to be with my son for 45 hours a week. And my husband has no recollection of saying this, but he was like, you don't? And that hit me so hard, because I was like, I don't. Like, he doesn't believe I want to be by my child. And I was like, shit, do I even, like, do I still even believe I want to be, like, at home that often? Like, am I just okay with being with him 3 hours at night? Is that what I want? And I just started really questioning, like, wait a minute, like, I've had this, like, belief of how I'm going to structure my life, and that's what I'm working towards. But now, like, my actions, my words, and what I want, like, there's a gap here. And I remember during this time, my son loves to pull hair. Like, he loves it. And he would pull my husband's hair. My husband just kind of go, ha ha, and, like, redirect him. But for me, it would throw me for a loop. Like, it would mentally fuck me. And, like, to the point where, like, I, like, threw my phone once and smashed. Like, it was kind of, again, all in first trimester. Like, there's a lot to be said for doing all I was doing in a first trimester. I didn't have this perspective now. But my husband asking that, for once, I didn't get in my shit about it. But it did give me a lot of pause, and I just kept reflecting over it for like a good week and a half of like, is that what I want? Is it blah, blah, blah? And I was like, no, like, I enjoy being with my son. Like, if I lock eyes with that kid before he gets those eyes, like, oh, mom's hair. But if I lock eyes with that kid, like, I soften. I love hanging out with him. I love seeing him crawl and do crazy. Yes, it's exhausting. Like, yes, it's very exhausting. And yes, when I'm exhausted, my patience is less. And that's where I get into some behaviors I really don't love and I'm working on. And, you know, now I'm realizing how to resource myself to help those not happen. But also give myself grace to my mom, and shit happens. But him asking that, like, I was like, why am I feeling so tense if I have him for 3 more hours? Why am I feeling so much more resistance if I'm with him? Like, it just started making me really question, like, what was I telling myself? Like, what was my body doing? And when I got to the other side of that, I was like, man, like, I was distorting that too. And I felt my entire body soften. I went from like having resistance if he wanted to go golfing, or if he was going golfing, I wanted to know exactly what time he was gonna be back, and like being somewhat militant over it, which again is not fair to him because he does not do that to me. And it made me realize how much I was distorting. And once I peeled back those layers and those filters and just was like, what is actually in front of me right now? Like, if I'm not in my head thinking and spiraling and all the things, like, what's actually in front of me? What's actually in front of me is this really beautiful boy who has nothing but love in his heart and love for my hair for some damn reason. And he's just a happy baby. And it's okay if I feel overstimulated at times and all the things, but for the most part, like, I want to be by him. I want to be with him. Like, that, I do actually want that. And whew, man, like, all of that was a lot. But the shifts were real. Like, through all of those shifts, I felt so much lighter. I told my coach, you know what, 6 months ago, I felt like I was still very much a young child in my head, like a young teenage girl. And I feel like I've stepped into like, oh, I'm actually an adult now. Like, I actually have some authority now. I can soften. I don't feel as stressed. I don't feel as uptight. I don't feel as so much constriction in my life right now. It all feels so different. And I think realizing the stories in my head and how they were robbing me of actual true gratitude, and how much they were distorting my actual true reality, like the things I was getting into, and how much they were, again, just distorting my reality and making me unhappy when none of it was true. None of it. So again, I hope I articulated that well. I don't know. I'm not gonna listen to this back. I'm not. I'm hoping I did. Please give me your feedback, thoughts, anything that I said. You're like, I want to hear more of that, or can you expand on that? Oh my gosh, I hope you guys can't hear my stomach growling right now. If you want to hear more of that, or have questions, or want just more conversation, please DM me. Like, I would love to explain anything or give more tea, whatever. Okay, number 3. I know we are very long here. This is gonna be a 20-minute podcast. We're at 46 minutes, but number 3 this is the other one that I feel like is just mind-blowing. And this one specifically, when I realized it in myself, I realize it in every single client of mine, and I've called them out on it every single time now, and it has drastically changed my own conversations with myself and conversations with my clients. So in this one, in my belief, if I continue to put in the reps at this, it will absolutely change my life. And I believe this for me, my clients, and you listening, if you also struggle with this. So this one is, I realized that in any given moment, I was always choosing the possibility that gave me the most fault. I was always, if the situation arose and was like, okay, well, why did this happen? Well, it must be because whatever, the only reason I could possibly come to was because I was a bad this, I was a not that. And I was always choosing the option that gave me the most fault. Let me give you an example for this. I went to, not GFS, not Costco, went to Sam's Club, and they had some pre-cooked chicken, which to me, it looked like cooked chicken. It was cooked chicken. And I bought it, and we did not meal prep that week. We needed to feed my son, so I got this chicken and I chopped it up, and I could give it to him for lunch, or I had our nanny give it to him for lunch, and I was giving it to him at dinner. And it's cooked chicken, and you'll realize why I'm saying that so much. But then my husband, like, him and I were talking about it, because our kid inhaled it, and we're like, wow, like, that was a lot. How many ounces are they? So my husband starts to look at the packaging, at the label, the Sam's Club, like, pre-made food label. And as he's looking at it, it says cook to this temperature, or cook to this, and it didn't say heat to. And in my husband's mind, and I agree with this, if it was fully cooked when we got it, it would mean that it would say heat to this temperature, heat for this long. But the fact that I was saying cook made my husband question, is this raw meat? And I'm like, I know what raw meat looks like. I'm not giving my son, like, raw chicken right now. It's white, it's not pink. It's, and my logical brain can say this now. That's my husband's questioning this, and he's questioning it just because, like, he's just curious. At this point, he's just curious and trying to figure out himself. My mind, I'm starting to spiral over, oh my God, am I giving my kid food poisoning? How much of a fucking idiot am I if that were the case? Like, I'm an idiot for not knowing. And I start just full on spiraling and calling myself all sorts of names. And my husband's like, he, being him, was like, I don't understand why you're taking this so personally. If I did this, I would just be like, oh shit, well, hope he doesn't get sick. But if he does, we'll cross, like, at least we know, and we'll cross it when we get there. And he's like, I feel like shit if it actually did happen. But he's like, without knowing it's actually happened, why am I going to beat myself up in this moment? Like, why am I gonna rob the joy of this moment so that I can beat myself up for something we don't even know that's going to happen, and that's highly unlikely to happen because it looks like cooked chicken? My brain was not hearing, like, in that moment, my brain was not hearing that. I was full blown on what, it must mean I'm a bad mom, and must mean I'm, like, an idiot if I don't want, like, raw chicken. It was not raw chicken. But in that moment, there were several options. There were a million options I could have chose that, okay, yeah, it says heat, cook versus heat, it's cooked chicken, conversation over. I could believe, like, okay, like, maybe it is. And again, like, my husband, like, well, let's hope not. But if it is, like, we'll cross that bridge. Like, there were many options I could choose from in that moment, but I was choosing the one that made me the worst person. And I was doing that in every single area of my life, my relationship, my business, my everything. I was always looking, like, the only scenario I would come to is the one where I was the worst person, when I had zero evidence of that is actually 100% true. And my clients, I was seeing the exact same thing. I had a client who was teaching a class, a kid did, and there was 3 different occasions, and this kid did things that she's like, oh, it's because I'm a bad teacher, and because I'm not this, and because I'm not that. And as I was listening to her, I was like, or he had an emergency, or blah, 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 or blah, blah, blah. And I could see how she was choosing in every scenario that the only way this could be possible, this could happen, is because she was X, Y, and Z. And the more I'm seeing this, the more I'm like, wait a minute. We have trained ourselves, I have trained myself to choose where I'm always the victim, and or always the one that's not adequate, not enough. And when I have zero evidence, it's not like it's very evident, like, there is, hey, Cassie, you actually fucked this up. Like, in all these situations, they were all gross assumptions. They were all, hey, it could be this, could be this, could be this, or could be that. And I have trained myself to choose the option that makes me look like the worst. When, let's say, I choose the option of, like, hey, it could be an honest mistake and I don't really know, and move on. Skip the, like, very exhausting and draining part of where I beat myself up and bring the whole mood of the day down, and my son now feels and he's now fussy. Like, it's not just like these conversations stay in my own head and they don't affect anybody else around me. It affects everything. It affects my energy that day. And if it's bad enough the next day, the day after that, it can have a significant domino effect, and it's exhausting. And I don't have time to be exhausted. I'm already exhausted. So I in my head, I was like, I have to start training myself to say, what else is possible here? What else could be a scenario? Even if it's like, that's like the 7% scenario. If I don't have 100% evidence, what is the utility in choosing me as the issue every single time? Unless I'm trying to keep myself back, I had to start asking myself, like, what is so helpful? What benefit do I get from making myself feel bad and choosing that I am the villain? That's a whole nother podcast. there are benefits in there. That's a whole nother podcast, and we'll get into that now. But when I started to ask myself this question and started to like the next few days train myself, okay, Cassie, we don't actually know the actual outcome here. And this also is for my husband too. If I try to run the story of like, hey, he did this or said this because he's trying to be malicious, that's my story, and that's something I'm choosing, but it's not reality. I know he's never maliciously coming at me or maliciously believing something. And if I'm choosing that story, then I need to have better questions with him, because I know that's not the case. I'm misunderstanding, I'm misinterpreting something if that's the conclusion I'm coming to, especially with my husband. And so the rest of July, I was really asking myself, hey, what else could be true here? What else could be possible here? Do you have rock solid, irrefutable evidence? Like, if this went to a courtroom, could someone realistically bring you to be guilty? And most times the answer is no. And so training myself to choose one of the other possibilities that either was a positive or neutral. Now, sometimes my brain does not love positive and rainbows and unicorns and sparkles. Like, it sometimes can't quite get there. But I can at least get to neutral. Like in the chicken situation, you know what? We'll cross that bridge when we get there, but I'm not going to rob this moment's joy, this vibe of the night, over something I just don't know is even going to happen. And the energy that decisions like that repeatedly have changed for me. Again, the amount of less time I'm in my head, the amount of presence I can have with my son now, the amount of joy I can have just being present and not blaming myself for something or in my shit, like, has been astronomical. I'm like, if I can train myself to do this for every situation, and I can have my clients do this too, like, holy shit, our lives could be so much different. Like, if we weren't taking every opportunity to blame ourselves, there's so much possible, and there's so much available to us. There's so much joy and peace and connection and love and belonging and just pride and just joy if we can do that. And it's not like if we can, it's just training our brain to do it, to look for the other options. And this is like a thing I've done with my clients, but it just clicked in a whole other way. And again, I'm hoping I'm articulating this properly. I don't even know, but if they don't, cool. At least these are lessons for me, and I feel they have changed me, and my hope is they'll change you, or at least they'll plant the seed that maybe they're not doing it right now, but later on, like 5 years, 6 years, 6 months, 2 months down the line, you're like, holy shit, I get it now. It's worth it. It's worth it. So this has been a very long podcast, and I hope it's been helpful. I hope that there are some takeaways. I really do love to hear what you're taking away, what's resonating, what's not, what you have questions on. So please, please, please DM me, text me, whatever. I would love to hear your feedback, love to hear your ahas, love to hear what's resonating with you and what's not. And again, I hope this was helpful. My hope is to I don't know if I'll do a deep dive like this in every month on my ahas, but you can at least see in my social media. You'll see each month, hopefully, if I remember and do it, the things I work through, the ahas, the wins, if you will, from the month. If you're getting to this part of the podcast and you're like, gosh, I really wish I had someone to help me see things differently and open my perspective and really expand me, if that's something that's interesting to you or something that you feel will be a benefit to you, this is what I do with my own clients. I think it's so hard when you're in your own shit and you are trying to figure out things. It's hard to see your life from a different lens when you're living it and you're in your stories and everything feels so real. And this is why I see the value of coaching. But if you're like, I really could use this in my life, highly recommend DM me. Let's have a conversation. I'd love to see how I can support you through it. And as always, cheers to never settling.